Chapter 753. Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders in exasperation. Snake doesn't like you staring at me like that. Wabiai's eyes brightened. He immediately leaned forward, wanting to ask but refusing to admit it. You are spouting nonsense. He didn't know I was staring at you when you went to meet the beast deity. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and pointed at the mark on the back of her neck. What did you say just now? Say it again. Wabiai stared at the lifelike mark, which had shrunk to the size of a palm. He was momentarily dazed. After a long pause, he muttered. Could it be, his soul is still living in your body? You can sense his emotions and communicate with him. Then, can you ask him to come out and talk to me? Just one sentence. Even, punching me or glaring at me will do. Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing. Her expression was extremely nasty. You actually believe such nonsense? How did you survive for the past 800 years? Wabiai was taken aback. He was instantly enraged. His eyes narrowed into slits and his poisonous fangs dripped with venom. Gu Mengmeng stretched out her fair arm in front of Wabiai. You want to bite me? Here, bite me then. Wabiai opened his mouth but still couldn't bite her. Her arm was too thin. It was not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. If he bit her, it would break. If her arm broke, who knew how heartbroken that person would be? Look at how you can't stand me and can't do anything to me. How are you like the legendary mighty Wabiai? TSK, little shit, just accept your fate. You can't do anything to me. Little shit. Wabiai repeated those two words through gritted teeth. His face was so black that ink could drip from it. Rolling his eyes, Wabiai gave a sinister smile. Since ancient times, the male has to pay for the female's troubles. I can't touch you, but I can challenge your partner. Guess if that stupid wolf and that coquettish fox of yours are enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Gu Mengmeng shrugged and stood up from Elvis's arms. She bent down and smiled at Elvis. Hubby, he said he wants to challenge you. Elvis sneered and stood up. He twisted his neck left and right as a form of warm-up. That's great. This is a barren mountain and there's no need to be afraid of destruction. It's suitable for exercising. Wabiai's eyes brightened as he looked at Gu Mengmeng. Can we really fight? Gu Mengmeng sat at the side drinking water and looked at Wabiai. Why are you asking me? It's not like you're fighting me. After Snake left, Wabiai had not met a suitable opponent for a long time. He was extremely dispirited after not battling for so long. On the other hand, Elvis was also very depressed. Ever since they were in the Snake King Valley, he had been feeling sullen and powerless. This evil fire had been pressing on his chest but he could not find a suitable opportunity to vent it out. He was at the peak of the 5th rank. He should be able to take a beating. Both of them rubbed their palms together in anticipation, but Gu Mengmeng waved at Ian and said, Hey, bro, do you want to join in the fun? WTO Wild Life and Death Edition, it should be quite exciting. Ian sat over with a flustered expression. He glanced at Gu Mengmeng and pointed at the two beasts who were ready to strike. Are we really going to let them fight? Aren't you afraid of getting into trouble? Chapter 754. When Leah returned, he saw the ground littered with debris and two exhausted males sprawled on the ground, looking like they were on their last breaths. He walked suspiciously over to Gu Mengmeng, who was calmly drinking from a cup of hot water. He looked at Ian, who looked as if he had seen a ghost, and could not understand the situation at all. He skewered the processed prey on the tree's sap and then placed it over the fire to roast. As he roasted, he said, I didn't bring a pot when I came out, so I'll have to trouble you to eat a roasted meal for the time being. I'll look for suitable ingredients on the way and dig a pot to bring along. I'll cook something for you that's easy to digest at night. Gu Mengmeng nodded as a form of agreement. She still had a faint smile on her face. Leah pointed at the two males who were sprawled on the ground, unable to transform back into human form. He asked, "These two, what happened?" Gu Mengmeng smacked her lips and smiled. The two of them just engaged in an unfriendly physical conversation. Leah was taken aback. Wabi challenged Elvis. Gu Mengmeng nodded as a form of reply. Lee's expression darkened. He asked with a cold gaze, "Who won?" Gu Mengmeng glanced at him. It should be considered a draw. Both of their injuries are not light and they look like they're half dead. Leo lifted his head. Since there's no clear victor, he can't join our family. Who? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She then laughed. You can't be thinking that Wabi challenged Elvis to mate with me, right? Leah did not find it funny at all. He frowned. No. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. They just had nothing better to do and had a meaningless fight. Leo looked suspiciously at Elvis and then at Wabi. Only then did he calm down. That's good. At least he knows his place. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Lee's arms. She chuckled. Suppressing one's emotions for too long will cause one to become a pervert. What about you? Do you need to find an opponent to vent? I think Ian is a good choice. Both of you have similar skills and should be able to spar. Leah planted a kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. Then, he smiled gently. This kind of violent and barbaric method is not suitable for me. If I want to release my stress, no one but you can do it. Lee's voice was light as a feather caressing Gu Mengmeng's heart. Every time he said a word, the feather would flutter, making Gu Mengmeng's heart itch. Gu Mengmeng gently pushed Leah away. She might not be the best in the beast world, but no one in the beast could beat her in the beast. Wabi was lying on his back. After being beaten up by Snake for 800 years, perhaps his combat power was not the best, but no one in the beast world could beat him in terms of endurance. After resting for such a long time, Wabi could already transform back into his human form. His face was bruised and swollen, but there was an inexplicable sense of comfort throughout his body. Wabi had broken 2 of Wabi's ribs. He could not transform into his human form for now. But this bout of venting had allowed him to release all the pent-up anger in his chest. Elvis had 2 of his ribs broken by Wabi. He could not transform into his human form for the time being. But this bout of venting had allowed all the pent-up anger in his chest to dissipate. Chapter 755. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with an exceptionally gentle gaze. Even a wolf's eyes could not conceal that tenderness. His female really understood him. However, Lee's words had enlightened him. Compared to fighting with Wabi, perhaps a battle with Gu Mengmeng would be more effective. Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's face in her hands. It was clearly a fierce wolf's face, but she did not feel the slightest bit afraid. Even if she stuck her hand into Elvis's mouth to count how many teeth he had, she would not feel the slightest bit nervous. She kissed Elvis. The way you look at me is not pure. It's as if you want to eat me up. Elvis thought to himself, you guessed it right. I really want to eat you up. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis lightly. Alright, you just stay here and have a good rest today. We will not continue on our journey today. We will set off tomorrow when you are better. Elvis did not have any objections and just nodded. After all, during the 3 days that Gu Mengmeng was asleep, they had been traveling at a very fast pace. They had been waiting for Gu Mengmeng to wake up so that they could slow down and not tire her out. Gu Mengmeng walked to Wabi's side and sat down. She gave him a faint smile. How is it? My taste in men is not bad, right? Wabi snorted coldly. That's all. If you had not interfered just now, he would not only have 2 broken ribs. Gu Mengmeng thought to herself, yes, if I had not interfered just now, there would be a bloody gash on your chest. You don't want the snake gallbladder anymore. These two people were getting anxious as they fought, and they even started to use killing moves. TSK, they really don't know their limits. But Gu Mengmeng did not want to use these words to agitate them. After all, Gu Mengmeng had only wanted them to vent their frustrations from the start. Now that the effect had been achieved, why should she cause more trouble for them? Hence, Gu Mengmeng clicked her tongue. Would it kill you to praise me? But Wabi was unyielding. Bad taste is bad. I am not like those cowards who have been bewitched by you. You want me to flatter you against my will? Maybe in another 100 years. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and covered her mouth as she stared at Wabi. It was only until Wabi was starting to get goosebumps that she pointed at the back of her neck and said, Don't forget, Snake is also my man. Although she did not mate in the beast world, but looking at Snake's attitude in the modern world, she probably could not escape from that time and space, so strictly speaking, this could not be considered a lie. Wabi choked and his face turned red. He was speechless for a long time before he finally said, You have good taste. Gu Mengmeng laughed out loud. 100 years is so short. It's like a snap of the fingers. Wabi died at the age of 800. The next morning, the group prepared to set off. There was nothing much to pack and they only brought along 2 new high-quality furs that Leah had brought back from hunting yesterday, to be used as a cushion for Gu Mengmeng. Walking out of the wishing room, Gu Mengmeng looked up and chuckled. She exhaled and said, I finally got rid of my little tail. Wabi chuckled. So this was your intention when you made me fight with Elvis yesterday? Gu Mengmeng smiled without saying a word, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Chapter 756. Yesterday, the place they were at was a nest of stray beasts. With Elvis and Wabi in their team, they were naturally not afraid of the stray beasts. And the majority of the stray beasts were crazily seeking battle and attacking in a suicidal manner. They did not care at all about the difference in power between themselves and their opponents. All they wanted was a bloody battle and a release. Gu Mengmeng naturally could not care less if they wanted to court death. But she would not be happy if they dirted her eyes. So she sent Leah to hunt and the little snake to protect him. She called Ian to sit beside her and let Elvis and Wabi fight. She had thought that the battle between the 2 5th-level beasts would be enough to intimidate the stray beasts. She did not expect them to become even more excited and eager to fight. Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to unleash her Beast King aura. It looked like she was suppressing Elvis and Wabi, but in reality, she was intimidating those stray beasts who were hiding in the dark. They were bloodthirsty and thirsted for killing and death. But deep in their bones, they were still dominated by the fear of a Beast King level aura. So none of them dared to make a move yesterday. Instead, they quietly followed behind them until Gu Mengmeng and the rest left their territory before quietly turning back. Subduing the enemy without bloodshed. That is the best strategy. Gu Mengmeng said nonchalantly. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and did not say a word. But he did not look too well, probably because he had not fully recovered from yesterday's injuries. No one took this little episode to heart and just continued on their way to the sea. The nearer they got to the sea, the wetter the air and the more energetic Wabi became. Finally, after walking for close to 20 days, they finally met up with Fei Rui. Gu Mengmeng turned around and kissed Elvis and Leah on their cheeks. I will go into the sea with this fellow to check out the situation. I will be back before the sky turns dark. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and kissed her again and again. He reminded her worriedly. Don't force yourself just because you are a beast king. The sea is not a place for you to unleash your full power. Protect yourself first and don't leave Wabi's side. Understand? Gu Mengmeng laughed softly. Don't worry. This fellow is even more afraid of me getting hurt than myself. He will definitely keep a close eye on me. Moreover, Gu Mengmeng pointed towards the sky and smiled mysteriously, saying, I have someone up there. Elvis and Leah followed her finger and looked up at the sky. Suddenly, they laughed and said, but didn't he say that we can't investigate the matters of the beast world? Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders and said, the principle is not to interfere with the matters of the beast world, but there's no rule that says I can't cheat for my own daughter. In any case, I'm a second-generation immortal now. Even if I'm a fox borrowing the tiger's might, I should at least be arrogant a few times, right? Don't worry, my lonely old man who loves watching TV series will take care of me. Elvis and Leah were doubtful, but they did not say much. Elvis looked at Wabi and said in an unusually serious tone, help me take care of Xiao Meng. I will definitely return this favor in the future. But Wabi snorted coldly and said disdainfully, your face is not enough to order me around. I am giving face to the one behind her neck. Elvis did not argue with Wabi and just said sincerely, no matter what, I am counting on you to take care of Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis and Li's neck and kissed them again. Then, she hugged Fei Rui and walked towards the sea. As she walked, she shouted, let's go, little shit. Digression. Chapter 757. After Gu Mengmeng, Fei Rui and Wabi disappeared into the sea, Leah and Elvis exchanged a look. Leah did not ask anything and Elvis did not say anything either. On the other side, Gu Mengmeng didn't feel any shortness of breath after entering the bottom of the sea. The kiss of the beast deity was a good item. Perhaps this was a cheat that the beast deity had given his messenger. After entering the sea, Fei Rui and Wabi kept staring at Gu Mengmeng, as if worried that she would feel uncomfortable in the seawater. Then, they realized that Gu Mengmeng was like a joyful wave diving into the depths of the sea. They were filled with curiosity towards the brightly colored undeveloped fishes and even broke off 2 pieces of coral to stick on their heads, asking Fei Rui if she looked like a little dragon man. After Fei Rui entered the water, he transformed into a fish tail and his upper body was naked. In his human form, he looked soft and cute, but in his half-beast form, he gave off the vibe of a semi-mature male god. He had the vibe of a semi-mature male god in college, no, high school, who knew how to play basketball, play guitar, and ride a bicycle to and from school in a white shirt and jeans. Yes, in high school, no older. If she only looked at his face, she would say he was in junior high school. But this figure, even if a junior high school boy stayed in the gym every day, he still wouldn't be able to develop such well-defined muscles. Gu Mingming's demonic claws reached towards Fei Rui's fishtail and she smiled slyly. Can I touch it? Before Fei Rui could reply, Gu Mingming's claws were already on him. Wow! It was the tail of the legendary mermaid. The scales were bright and neat, reflecting the sunlight filtered by the sea, suffused with a gorgeous and gentle halo. Speaking of flaws. TSK, why was it a male? Her breasts are also too flat, affecting her beauty. Poor review. Although Gu Mengmeng only touched him once, when she looked up, she saw that Fei Rui's face was already as red as a monkey's butt. She instantly felt a sense of guilt, as if she had accidentally harmed the flower of her country. But she was really just curious. She did not know that the sensitive spot of a fish was its tail. Retracting her numb hand, Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. I won't touch anymore. Let's go. Aren't you in a hurry to save your sister? Thinking of his little sister, Fei Rui's face darkened. He nodded and swam forward. After swimming for a while, he turned back and realized that Gu Mengmeng had been left far behind. He had already slowed down, but she still couldn't catch up. Her swimming posture was so strange. Although it looked good, wasn't it too slow? Gu Mengmeng looked at Fei Rui's confused face and sighed silently in her heart. She helplessly hooked her arms around Wabi-Eye's neck and smiled. Brother, give me a lift. On what basis? Wabi-Eye glared at Gu Mengmeng coldly. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and revealed the mark on the back of her neck. Is this enough? Wabi-Eye gritted his teeth. He tucked Gu Mengmeng under his armpit with one hand and carried Gu Mengmeng like he was carrying luggage. He chased after Fei Rui in his half-beast form without saying a word. To be honest, the speed at which the fish and the snake moved in the water was really F***ing ridiculous. It was like sitting on the underwater version of a roller coaster, and it was the version without the safety belt. It was really F***ing exciting. Chapter 758. Gu Mengmeng gestured for Wabi-Eye to release her. Then, with the aura of a messenger of the beast deity, she imitated that lonely old man who loved to watch television series and smile kindly. Hello everyone, I am the messenger of the beast deity, Gu Mengmeng. Nice to meet you all. There was a wave of whispers in a language that Gu Mengmeng could not understand. Then, one of the mermaids transformed into a half-beast form and tried to get closer. But he maintained a safe distance. Are you really the messenger of the beast deity? Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Have you ever seen a female non-sea tribe other than the messenger of the beast deity breathe and move freely in the ocean at this depth? The mermaid thought about it and felt that Gu Mengmeng's words made sense. But he was obviously very afraid of Wabi-Eye behind Gu Mengmeng. He pursed his lips and asked carefully, then is he, your partner? Gu Mengmeng shook her head. No, he is my friend. The mermaid seemed very uneasy. He tugged at Fei Rui's arm. Your Highness, that seems to be a snake beast, we cannot afford to offend him. Let him leave quickly. Fei Rui shook his head. No, I need his power to save my sister. The mermaid said, are you going to disregard your entire tribe for your sister? We have already been chased out of our home by the giant fish beasts. If we continue to cause trouble, the next time the giant fish beasts will kill us all. Fei Rui held his head high. The great messenger will protect us. The mermaid said, but the great messenger will not stay in the ocean forever. What will we do after she leaves? When they come back for revenge, who will protect us? Fei Rui bit his lower lip. He could not answer the mermaid's question. The giant fish tribe was known as the overlords of the ocean. The mermaids were no match for them. But once Gu Mengmeng left and the giant fish beasts returned, he would still be unable to protect his tribe members or his sister. So he wanted to mate with Gu Mengmeng. He wanted to use the identity of the messenger's partner to intimidate the giant fish beasts. This way, as long as he was alive, the giant fish beasts would not dare to bully his tribe members. Gu Mengmeng shook her head at Fei Rui's aggrieved look, which looked like he was about to cry. He was too weak. If he could be forced into such a state by his own tribesmen, what would he do when facing the giant fish beasts? She didn't want to interfere at first, but Fei Rui kept glancing at her. Unable to resist the pleading look in his eyes, Gu Mengmeng sighed and asked, has that Dora appeared yet? Fei Rui's expression changed. Fei Rui shook his head and said, no, there's no news at all. Gu Mengmeng frowned. That shouldn't be the case. The messenger of the beast deity's promise sounded quite valuable. Why didn't Dora take the bait? If she was a pure and innocent child without any greed, she would not have stolen the giant fish clan's treasures. Could it be that he was already dead? Or perhaps, Fei Rui, do you know what exactly is the treasure of the giant fish clan? Gu Mengmeng could vaguely smell a conspiracy. Moreover, it was a familiar formula and a familiar smell. Fei Rui shook his head. I don't know. We don't have much contact with the giant fish clan. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips curled up. She chuckled and continued asking, then how did the giant fish clan determine that your sister stole their treasures? Chapter 759. Gu Meng Meng patted his shoulder. If you want to save your sister, you have to tell me everything. If you hide anything, I may not be able to help you. Fei Rui sighed. His eyes that were as bright as the stars seemed to be covered by dark clouds, losing their luster. His brows furrowed as he said with guilt and heartache, "The leader of the giant fish tribe, Carter, led a group of tribesmen and charged into our tribe. They captured my sister and said that Dora had personally admitted that their tribe's treasure was in my sister's hands. No matter how we tried to explain, we couldn't beat them. We could only watch helplessly as they snatched my sister away." Gu Mingming's smile widened. She poked Fei Rui's head and asked, "Then what about the territory being snatched away?" Fei Rui's lips curled downwards, looking like he was trying hard to hold it in. With a hint of youthful stubbornness, he said, "Because I kept asking Carter to return my sister. He found me annoying and challenged me. He said that if I won, he would return my sister to me. But if I lost, I would have to give him the territory of the mermaid tribe. I clearly knew that I was no match for him, but I still agreed. Because of my stupidity and recklessness, I implicated my tribesmen and my sister." Gu Meng Meng patted Fei Rui's shoulder and comforted him. "Oh, you can do that. All right, let's not wait for that Dora anymore. Let's go find Carter." Fei Rui looked up at Gu Meng Meng in confusion. Gu Meng Meng smiled. "Can't we challenge him? I will help you beat him up and win back my sister and the territory." Fei Rui stared at Gu Meng Meng in a daze. Can I?" Gu Meng Meng smiled. "Why not?" Fei Rui hesitated. He knew that the consequences would be the same as the mermaid beast's worries. Once Gu Meng Meng left, the giant fish beasts would still attack them in revenge, and they would not be able to withstand it. But even so, he was desperate to save his sister. Just this once. Just one last time of recklessness. He felt that if it was Gu Meng Meng, she might be trustworthy. Nodding, Fei Rui ignored his tribesman's objections. He grabbed Gu Mingming's hand and flew off like an arrow. Wabi clicked his tongue impatiently behind her, but still followed after her. The people of the mermaid tribe seemed to be afraid of Carter. None of them dared to follow him. They just quietly returned to the depths of the ocean. Other than a string of sighing bubbles, it was as if nothing had happened. The original territory of the mermaids was a large coral sea. The living corals were soft and tender, moving with the flow of the water. They were full of vitality and had an indescribable sense of tranquil beauty. Many nameless aquatic plants were evenly distributed and intertwined with the corals, forming a mirage in the sea. It looked a bit like the East Ocean Dragon Palace. A few giant fish beasts were wandering around the edge of the territory. They seemed to be guarding the gate. The moment he saw Fei Rui, he turned into his half-beast form and mocked him with disdain. "Weakling, are you looking for trouble again? You've already lost your territory. What other chips do you have to challenge our patriarch?" Fei Rui clenched his fists tightly and bit his lower lip, unable to speak. Gu Meng Meng took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, "Go, call Carter out for me." The giant fish beast sized Gu Meng Meng up with a dazed expression. Chapter 760. Wabi took 2 steps forward and narrowed his eyes. "I asked you to call for help. Are you deaf? If you look again, I will gouge your eyes out." Snake beast." The guard from the giant fish tribe was clearly shocked. He instantly jumped back a few meters and looked at Wabi warily. He seemed to be quite frightened. Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and asked Wabi, "Why are they so afraid of you? Have you done any harm here before?" Wabi snorted coldly. "Not me, it's him." With that, he tapped the back of Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Meng Meng thought hard. Snake had indeed been to the bottom of the sea before. But it seemed like he had only come to find some seafood to improve his diet when he was bored. It seemed like he had not harmed anyone, right? Wait a minute. What did he eat back then? Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She shook her head and finally understood why the ocean tribe was so afraid of snakes. Sighing in exasperation, she grinned at the giant fish tribe who had fled in fear. Clearly, this fellow had obediently gone to report. Chuckling, she said in exasperation, "See, shouldn't you have been so obedient earlier? Why must you let our little shit throw a tantrum? TSK, cheap bastard." Gu Mengmeng. Wabi gritted his teeth and roared her name word by word. Gu Mengmeng smiled nonchalantly. "Why are you glaring at me? I am not afraid of you." Wabi was infuriated. He grabbed Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and turned her around. Then, he said to the mark on the back of her neck, "Snake, hurry and take her away." Then, Wabi was stunned. There was actually poison on his hands. He had long developed immunity to this poison. After all, he had been poisoned for over 800 years. Although the poison was quickly diluted by the seawater, he could still recognize it. It was snake's poison. Staring at the mark on the back of Gu Mengmeng's neck, he was more and more convinced of what Gu Mengmeng had said previously. Snake was in her body. She was the one who lied to him. Snake was here, he must be here. This realization made Wabi a little crazy. He grabbed Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and shook her violently. "Snake, you are here, aren't you? Come out, let's fight." Gu Mengmeng was about to vomit from Wabi's shaking. Actually, it was just because Wabi was too fierce to her just now that triggered Snake's protection mark. It was not Snake's soul that was angry, but it was useless for her to say anything now. Shaking her shoulders, Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Wabi. "TSK, don't get touchy." Wabi was taken aback for 2 seconds before he continued shaking Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was really on the verge of vomiting from his shaking. Unable to tolerate it any longer, she slapped Wabi far away. This scene happened to be seen clearly by Carter, who had just been called out from the tribe. There was no other male snake beast at the peak of level 5 in this world. How strong was it? Perhaps, even if they had never met, a single glare from him would be enough to make her heart tremble. A man like this was sent flying by a smaller female. Chapter 761. Carter's shock at Gu Mengmeng's slap was shattered by Fei Rui's appearance. The moment he saw Fei Rui, Carter's gaze was filled with disdain and arrogance. He smirked and said in an arrogant tone, "If you are so capable, snatch it back." Gu Mengmeng patted Fei Rui, who was clearly afraid but still wanted to charge forward. She comforted him with a smile. Fei Rui was a good child. Even though his thoughts were not mature enough and he was not powerful enough, just the fact that he stood in front of Gu Mengmeng to protect her even though he was clearly afraid was enough to make Gu Mengmeng willingly help him. Not because of the kiss of the ocean or any other reason, but because Gu Mengmeng felt that Fei Rui was a good person. Fei Rui pursed his lips into a straight line. He was hesitant but eventually calmed down. On one hand, he believed in Gu Mengmeng's abilities, but on the other hand, he was worried that Gu Mengmeng would be at a disadvantage. After all, she was a female. With that thought in mind, he stared unblinkingly at Gu Mengmeng. Every cell in his body was on guard against Carter, ready to use himself as a meat shield to protect Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng chuckled at how nervous he was and didn't say anything. She took 2 steps forward and looked at Carter. He had a strong physique and a resolute face. If he held a fork in his hand, he would be the most handsome version of the sea god Poseidon. His temperament was similar to Elvis from a certain point of view. His entire body was filled with signs that said, "Strangers do not come near," and the way he looked at her was very familiar to Gu Mengmeng, because Elvis and Leah always had this cold and guarded look when they looked at someone other than Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng placed her hands behind her back and looked up at Carter. Her small body contained a lot of energy. The nobility that Snake had accumulated over thousands of years was naturally not something someone like Carter could compare to. Let's put it this way, if Gu Mengmeng really wanted to act cool, no one in the entire beast world could do it better than her unless Snake himself came back to life. She chuckled with a king's disdain. She opened her mouth and said slowly and evenly, "Now, the ocean tribes are no longer under the beast deity's control." Carter was taken aback and frowned, as if he didn't understand what she meant. Wabi, who had been sent flying by Gu Mengmeng, had already stood back up. He had to play his role well in front of outsiders and not embarrass that person. Hence, Wabi stared coldly at Carter, not saying a single word. Meanwhile, Fei Rui was standing on the other side of Gu Mengmeng. Although he was a little timid, he still said, "This is the messenger of the beast deity, Carter. No matter how arrogant you are, there should be a limit." Messenger of the beast deity. Carter's eyes darkened and his jaw muscles bulged, as if he was gritting his teeth and weighing something. Clenching his fists tightly by his sides, he remained silent for a moment before lowering his head and bowing respectfully, "Greetings, messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She rested one hand on Fei Rui's arm and leaned against Wabi's shoulder, looking like an indecent empress dowager. She chuckled and said, "Let's skip the formalities. I am here to see... What is your sister's name again?" Fei Rui whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "Melinda." Gu Mengmeng said, "Yeah, right. I'm here to see Melinda. Leader Carter, please make things convenient for me." Chapter 762. As they brushed shoulders, Wabi bumped into him. Carter stumbled awkwardly but could not do anything to Wabi. He could only clench his fists and follow behind Gu Mengmeng silently. This was originally the territory of the mermaid tribe, so Fei Rui was very familiar with the place and easily found his younger sister's original residence. Pink corals formed a circle around a huge open shell. The shell was filled with fresh seaweed, stacked neatly on top of one another. A pillow made from giant clams was placed at one end of the large shell. Beside it was some kind of shellfish containing food. Gu Mengmeng had never seen it before, so it must be some kind of fruit from the bottom of the sea. A young girl was sitting on the ground, her upper body sprawled on the seaweed on the shell bed. She buried her face in her arms and refused to look up. Her blonde hair was slightly curled. It was not exaggerated, but it was very classy. Gu Mengmeng would not normally say that blonde girls were classy. Even if it was a high-end blonde goddess from European and American movies, she would at most say that they had an aura. Gu Mengmeng felt that only black-haired Chinese girls were worthy of the term classy. But for some reason, just by looking at her back, Gu Mengmeng felt that a blonde girl was classy for the first time. She lay there motionlessly, looking like an injured swan in a ballet. There was a faint sense of sadness and helplessness, but also stubbornness and unwillingness to give in. Gu Mengmeng had not even seen her face, but her heart ached for this girl. "Melinda!" Fei Rui called out agitatedly. The girl's back froze for a moment before she suddenly turned around. Her eyes, which were almost identical to Fei Rui's, were misty, but her lips were curved into a joyful smile. "Brother!" The girl stood up abruptly. Ignoring the numbness in her legs, she ran towards Fei Rui in a sorry state. Fei Rui naturally did the same. He rushed forward and hugged his sister tightly in his arms, comforting her gently and patiently. Gu Mengmeng glanced at Carter. Her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Enduring. Sadness. Helplessness. Perhaps it was pain, but there was no anger. This was not the look one should have when looking at a criminal. Gu Mengmeng was no stranger to this look. Elvis and Leah had the same look when looking at her. "You're not satisfied?" Gu Meng Meng stood beside Carter and asked. Carter gritted his teeth and said, "Unless the great emissary stays at the bottom of the sea to protect the mermaid clan, otherwise. You're still going to use the excuse of the clan treasure being stolen to continue imprisoning the girl." Glancing sideways, Gu Meng Meng accepted the shock in Carter's eyes calmly. This fellow must have thought that he had acted very well and no one would know the truth. Gu Meng Meng smiled like an expert, then said lightly, "What you did would only push her to the opposite side of you. If in her eyes, you will always be the enemy." Carter's eyes widened at Gu Meng Meng's words. He didn't even have such a reaction when he saw Wabi Eye. Chapter 763. Fei Rui finally managed to coax the crying Melinda. Then, he held her little hand and slowly walked over to Gu Meng Meng. He looked at Gu Meng Meng anxiously. "Great messenger, can we bring my sister away?" Gu Meng Meng tilted her head. "I just came in to take a look. I will leave after making sure your sister is fine. You have to ask Carter whether you can bring her away." Gu Meng Meng's words stunned not only Fei Rui and Melinda, but even Carter. 3 pairs of eyes widened in shock. They stared at Gu Meng Meng in confusion. Gu Meng Meng shrugged. "Of course, no one can stop me even if I were to openly rob her today. But, do you want Melinda to be labeled as a thief forever? Think carefully. If she leaves with me today, it would be equivalent to confirming her crime of stealing someone else's things. She would not be able to clear her name again in the future." Gu Meng Meng shrugged nonchalantly and said, "Well, it's easier for me to just bring her away directly. After all, our deal is just to help you save your sister. It doesn't include clearing her name, and it also doesn't include whether she will be captured again after I leave." This. Fei Rui was in a dilemma again. He bit his lower lip. "It's all right. I can bring my sister to another part of the ocean and start afresh. Far away from here, no one will recognize us and no one will be able to find us." When he mentioned leaving, Carter's pupils shrank. The veins on his fists were popping. He was clearly furious. Gu Meng Meng tugged at him and shook her head gently. Then, her gaze landed on Melinda's face. She smiled gently. Melinda fulfilled all of Gu Meng Meng's fantasies of being a mermaid. She was not just a back-view killer. Even Gu Meng Meng, who had been brainwashed by Elvis and Leah to think that she was the most beautiful woman in the world, felt a sense of inferiority in front of Melinda. Long years at the bottom of the sea had caused her skin to be smooth and fair. Her body, which had been honed by swimming, flowed smoothly like water. There was not a single bit of excess fat on her body. She was simply the embodiment of perfection. Her face was so pure that people couldn't bear to say a harsh word in front of her. She was supposed to be a princess that was held in the palm of the hand. Melinda had definitely refreshed Gu Meng Meng's understanding of females in the beast world. She was the most beautiful female Gu Meng Meng had ever seen in the beast world. At this moment, Marlene bit her lower lip and hesitated for a long time. But she still raised her head with determination and looked at Gu Meng Meng. "No, I'm not leaving. I didn't steal anything, so why should I run away?" Gu Meng Meng smiled softly. From the corner of her eye, she saw that Carter had also finally heaved a sigh of relief, no longer suffocating as if someone was strangling him. Gu Meng Meng walked in front of Fei Rui and patted his shoulder. Looking into his sparkling eyes, she comforted him. "I will stay by the seaside for a while and help Melinda settle the matter of the theft. I will let her live openly at the place she likes. Do you want to believe me for once?" But Fei Rui's gaze turned towards Carter. It was filled with wariness and hostility. Gu Meng Meng reached out without hesitation and sent Carter flying with a slap. Then, she dusted her hands. "With me around, I'll see who dares to bully my little mermaid." Chapter 764. By the time they returned to the shore, the moon was already shining brightly. Leah sat by the fire and stirred the food in the pot, his eyes constantly drifting to the surface of the sea. It wasn't until he saw that familiar figure running in front of him that his heart finally calmed down. Elvis removed the beast skin that had been roasting by the fire and wrapped it around Gu Meng Meng. He then glared coldly at Fei Rui back into the sea. He watched as Wabier knowingly swam into the forest in search of food. There was no one else by the shore, so he quickly helped Gu Meng Meng change into a clean set of clothes to prevent her from catching a cold. As Gu Meng Meng changed, she reached out her hand for food. She was really hungry. Although it was either Fei Rui or Wabiai who pulled her along the entire journey, the distance she had swum today was definitely enough for her to complete a triathlon. She had used up a lot of her energy. Elvis was always in a good mood when he saw her eat more. So he asked as he fed her, "How did the matter go? Did the leader of the giant fish tribe make things difficult for you?" Gu Meng Meng chuckled and said, "The plot is rather melodramatic. It's just like the deep-sea version of The President is Above, I'm Below, adhering to the light-hearted plot of torturing you because I love you. I really wonder if the brains of you males are filled with laundry detergent." Leah and Elvis were at a loss. They had no idea what laundry detergent was, but from her tone, it was probably not a compliment. But they caught on to something. Torturing you because I love you. So, not only did Gu Meng Meng attract a love rival for them in the sea today, she had also been wronged and tormented. Gu Meng Meng could tell from their expressions that they had misunderstood again. Raising her hand, Gu Meng Meng stopped herself in time. "Stop, don't let your thoughts run wild. He doesn't like me. I am at most a matchmaker in this matter." Elvis's face darkened as he asked in a monosyllabic voice. Gu Meng Meng took another bite of meat. Before she swallowed, she smiled and tilted her head to point at the surface of the sea with her chin. "There, the main character is here. If you are curious, just ask him directly." Carter had originally come to ask Gu Meng Meng why she was helping him, and also what to do next. But seeing that there were others around, he could not bring himself to do it. She wanted to go back the way she came, but when she saw how Gu Meng Meng, Elvis and Leah were interacting, she felt very envious. Momentarily at a loss, she walked closer. Now that he had been singled out by Gu Meng Meng, it was too late for him to retreat. He might as well transform into his human form and walk over. Elvis handed Gu Meng Meng over to Leah before standing up and walking towards Carter. With a cold expression, he asked, "What did you do to Xiao Meng?" Carter had long seen Elvis's mark on Gu Meng Meng's collarbone, so he naturally knew about their relationship. He pursed his lips and said, "I was slapped by the great messenger, does that count?" Without saying a word, Elvis threw a punch at Carter's face. Carter fell to the ground, seeing stars. He was considered a tyrant in the sea, but his abilities were limited on land. Moreover, he was only a third-level beast, so a punch from the fifth-level Elvis was enough to make him suffer. Elvis's voice was cold and filled with anger. "Xiao Meng never hits people for no reason. If she hits you, it must be because you did something that deserves to be hit." Carter looked at Elvis and did not open his mouth. On one hand, he had a deep-rooted fear towards the strong, and on the other hand, he had a favor to ask of Gu Meng Meng. He was willing to pay such a price. Digression, author Xiao Meng, son, why did you hit people for no reason without asking clearly? Elvis, Xiao Meng thinks that he deserves to be hit. That is the most sufficient reason for me to hit him. I don't need anything else. Author Xiao Meng, both of you have violent tendencies. Carter is innocent. Elvis, innocent. Do you know how many joints in Xiao Meng's body needed to move to complete that slap? My Xiao Meng had to go through so much trouble, yet he is innocent. Chapter 765. Gu Meng Meng didn't stop Elvis from beating Carter up. She just ate with gusto. When she was almost done, she called out, "Hubby, wash the pot." Elvis left Carter behind and returned to Gu Meng Meng's side. He kissed her oily lips, then carried the new stone pot Leah had made to the beach to wash it. Carter then climbed up from the ground pathetically and walked to Gu Meng Meng's side. He bowed and greeted, "Great messenger." Gu Meng Meng acted as if she couldn't see the wounds all over his body. "Sit down. Tell me your story." Carter was taken aback. He had thought that since Gu Meng Meng had been sent by Fei Rui, she would definitely detest him as much as Fei Rui did. Although she had not displayed any hostility at the bottom of the sea and had even secretly helped him keep Melinda behind, he still could not figure out what this great messenger was thinking. Moreover, he thought that Gu Meng Meng would at least ask him why he was looking for her. But she asked him to tell her his story. He came here with a stomach full of questions, not to tell a story. Gu Meng Meng smacked her lips, as if she was still savoring the taste of that last mouthful of meat. After swallowing her saliva in satisfaction, Gu Meng Meng spoke first. "I will stay here for 10 days. If you can't settle Melinda in 10 days, I will leave with the siblings." "Great messenger." Carter growled. Leo laughed coldly as he protected Gu Meng Meng in his arms. His slanted eyes were filled with disdain and provocation as he stared at Carter. His tone was calm but colder than the seawater under the moonlight. "Killing you here might be a simpler and more violent method. How long has it been since I last ate fish? Thinking about it. I'm really hungry." They were both third-level beasts, but they were on land. Carter couldn't possibly defeat Leah. If he wanted to return to the sea, Elvis was guarding the beach and wouldn't give him a chance to enter the sea. Moreover, he was here to ask questions and not to cause trouble. Carter bent his knees and knelt in front of Gu Meng Meng. He lowered his head. "Great messenger, please help me. Tell me how to make Melinda accept me." Gu Meng Meng chuckled and leaned into Lee's arms. "I want you to sit down, not kneel. If I don't want to help you, it's useless for you to kneel or kowtow. If I want to help you, I won't trample on your dignity, understand?" Carter nodded, not fully understanding. Then, he sat up according to Gu Meng Meng's instructions. He stared at Gu Meng Meng with sparkling eyes, as if he was hoping to see a flower blossoming on her face and pluck it for Melinda to win her heart. Gu Meng Meng sighed and said, "Even if I want to give you ideas, I have to first know what is going on. Tell me your story with Melinda, and I'll help you think of a way." Carter nodded. He was obviously a hardliner, but at this moment, when he thought of his sweetheart, a trace of gentleness and shyness appeared on his face. "There was a territorial dispute between clans, and I was heavily injured. I almost lost my life. I was saved by Melinda, who was out playing. With just one look, I fell in love with her. After I recovered, I returned to the giant fish tribe. The battle was still going on, and I couldn't leave my people behind. But when the battle ended and I went to find her, she didn't recognize me. She rejected me, resisted me, avoided me. She was afraid of me." Out of topic. Chapter 766. She is the most beautiful female in the world. I swear I will cherish her, protect her and give her the best. But, she was so nice to me when I was injured. Why did she abandon me after I recovered? I did not do anything to hurt her. Why is she afraid of me? Even you, the great messenger, can see through my feelings for her. Why does she not know? I will never hurt her." Carter felt helpless and helpless. He lowered his head and sighed, unable to say anything else. Gu Meng Meng chuckled. "You snatched the mermaid tribe's territory and forced her tribesmen to have nowhere to go. You humiliated her brother time and time again, forcing him to come all the way to Saint Nazaire to ask for my help to save him. Do you think all these are not hurt? Carter looked up in confusion. I snatched the mermaid tribe's territory because she did not like where the giant fish tribe lived. She said she wanted to go home, so I snatched her home back for her. Gu Mengmeng could not control herself and laughed. Her face was filled with the word convinced. His way of thinking was really strange. How did he come up with such a solution? Gu Mengmeng really felt that gender theory and horoscopes were all a fantasy. How did the way of thinking between the sexes become so different? And Fei Rui, he is always the one challenging me. I have never taken the initiative to find trouble with him. It is not my fault that he could not beat me, Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Young man, your way of thinking is called, destined to be alone. Do you understand? Carter shook his head honestly. Gu Mengmeng explained kindly. It means destined to be alone for life. Carter panicked. Why? What did I do wrong? Gu Mengmeng suddenly wanted to laugh. It was like a child who handed in a blank paper and asked his teacher, "Teacher, what do you think I did wrong? What can I improve on?" The teacher's reply was, "You did wrong because you did not even write your name." Gu Mengmeng patted Li's chest. Tell him where he did wrong. I am afraid I will drown him with my spit. Leah suddenly felt that Carter was not so annoying. After all, he was blind. A handicapped fish was quite pitiful. Why did he say that he was blind? Of course, it was because he said that Melinda was the most beautiful female in the world. What a joke, the most beautiful female in the world was Gu Mengmeng in his arms, alright. If he couldn't even tell, what else could he be other than blind? Leah still had some compassion for the handicapped. After all, a witch doctor was also a kind of angel in white. It was his duty to care for the wounded. Of course, the prerequisite was that this patient did not covet his Mengmeng. Clearing his throat, Leah placed his large tail into Gu Mengmeng's arms, allowing her to play with it. Squinting his eyes, Leah said, "With your intellect, you can't have thought of framing her for stealing, right? Tell me, who is the mastermind behind this?" Chapter 767. Gu Mengmeng and Leah looked at each other and smiled, understanding each other. Leah continued, "The female said she wanted to go home and you snatched her territory, this idea." Carter replied with a blank expression, "Oh, this was my own idea." Leah chuckled, "No one reminded you." Carter thought for a moment, then replied, "Dora gave me a suggestion." Leah chuckled, then shook his head and sighed, ignoring Carter. He hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin and said affectionately, "Mengmeng, promise me, don't choose partners from the ocean tribes. They are so stupid, it will lower the average IQ of our family." Gu Mengmeng nodded in agreement, "Don't worry, I am very repulsed by males who don't know how to judge a whore." Elvis had already finished washing the pot and placed it beside a big tree. He then shook off the water on his hands and carried Gu Mengmeng up. Elvis had heard their entire conversation. He could still coexist peacefully with a male who had no ulterior motives towards Gu Mengmeng. He kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face, then said, "Take the kiss of the ocean and let's go. He is hopeless, don't waste time." Carter was really dumbfounded by Gu Mengmeng's family of three. He couldn't get a word in or understand what they were saying, until Elvis said he was not going to care about him. Then he snapped out of his trance and looked at Gu Mengmeng anxiously. "Great messenger, what did I do wrong? Please tell me, I am willing to change. For Melinda, I can change anything." Gu Mengmeng chuckled, "Do you know what your biggest mistake is?" Carter shook his head. Everything he did was to keep Melinda by his side. He didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. Gu Mengmeng, indeed. A person with terminal male cancer will never know that he is beyond cure. Carter was taken aback. He looked down at his own body and frowned. "I'm going to die. So I can't give her happiness, right?" Gu Mengmeng thought that communicating with Snake was already the limit of the generation gap, but now it seemed like she was wrong. In the beast world, there was only more difficult communication, not the most difficult. Something like a generation gap, haha, had no limits. Leah chuckled. Not being able to make the female you like happy is your biggest mistake. Carter nodded in agreement and said, I know, it's my fault. But I don't know how to change. That's why I'm here to consult Lord Emissary. Leah shook his head and said, listening to females other than the ones you like is the second mistake you made. Carter's expression was stiff and somewhat wooden. Listening to Lee's words was like listening to a book from heaven. His mouth was slightly agape and his eyes were blank as he looked at Leah, not understanding what was going on. Leah pointed at Elvis and then at himself. My Meng Meng liked me first, but he is Ming Ming's first partner. Do you know why? Kite thought for a moment and said, because he's a level 5 orc. You can't beat him. Leah snickered. You are really outstanding in your stupidity. How could he have been at the 5th level before mating? Kite slapped his forehead as he recalled the matter of the level 3 boundary. Chapter 768. I thought I was doing it for her own good, so she would definitely forgive me after knowing the truth. I was mentally prepared to accept all the punishments. I thought I was prepared. Leah recalled those days when he was not forgiven. Gu Meng Meng kept calling him her ex-boyfriend in the cave, asking him to maintain his composure and not pester her. Every word was like a sharp claw, tearing at his heart to this day. This pain constantly reminded him not to do anything that would upset Gu Meng Meng. He could not bear the consequences. Raising his head, he looked at Carter as if he had been through it all. Leah said slowly, all punishments, including her tears and determination. What if the only punishment she can give you is to tell you with tears that she forgives you and doesn't hate you anymore, so that you don't need to disturb her anymore? Are you also prepared to accept it? All these were clearly just a few words from Leah, but Carter felt as if his chest was being viciously torn apart by something. That pair of clear eyes were filled with tears. It was as if the scene of her saying goodbye was right before his eyes. In that instant, he felt as if every drop of blood in his body had solidified. He froze on the spot, unable to move. Leah chuckled. See, you are not prepared. And you can't bear it either. Carter's temples were throbbing. He was silent for a long time before he found his voice again. Like a drowning man who had grabbed onto a life-saving straw, he said in a trembling voice, but you were forgiven in the end, didn't you? Leo looked at the mark on Gu Mingming's ear tenderly, his eyes filled with so much joy and treasure. He reached out and caressed Gu Mingming's little earlobe, then looked at Carter with some arrogance in his long and narrow eyes, saying, the difference between you and me is that other than Meng Meng, I will not listen to any other females. Everything I did wrong was all my own idea, while you listened to Dora and hurt Melinda. This is the fundamental difference. Understand? I just don't want Melinda to leave me. Carter was scared witless by Lee's words. There was nothing going on between him and Dora, but why did he feel so guilty after hearing Lee's words? Lee's face was filled with disdain as he sneered. Oh, your desires are above her happiness, seems like you don't like her that much. No, it's not like that. Kite wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to say. Gu Meng Meng smiled, this Carter was still too young to compete with Leah in terms of wits. Waving his hand, he said, Carter, you must first be clear about what you want. Do you want to keep Melinda by your side, or do you want her to like you, fall in love with you, and accept you? Kite was at a loss and asked, is there a difference? Gu Meng Meng chuckled and said, of course there is. There is a huge difference between voluntary and involuntary. The former represents happiness, while the latter represents torture. How can there be no difference? Carter said without hesitation, I want her to be happy. Gu Meng Meng nodded and said, the first step is to clear her name. Make up for the mistakes you've made in the past, only then will you have the qualifications to stand in front of her and pursue her again. Carter nodded and said, "All right, I will now go back and announce that Melinda never stole anything." Never. Gu Meng Meng held her forehead as she leaned on Elvis's shoulder and looked at Leah, giving him a pleading look. Chapter 769. Leah brought Carter to one side and guided him. Gu Meng Meng could not bear to continue listening to Carter's words. He looked so smart, but why did he sound like a retard when it came to relationships? Nestled in Elvis's arms, Gu Meng Meng sighed. "Luckily I met you then, or else I would have been angered to death." Elvis's eyes were filled with indulgence and love. He kissed Gu Meng Meng's eyes and whispered in her ear with a hoarse and reserved voice, "Silly girl, I'm the one who should rejoice." That night, Carter brought Leah to listen to his lessons. Wabi did not return and was curled up in some tree in the forest. Ian's presence was as low as ever. Meanwhile, Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng and listened to her count the stars one by one. She told him interesting stories about the constellations that he did not understand. Her voice was so gentle that he could not sleep the entire night. He did not even want to miss the sound of her breathing. The next morning, Wabi brought back fresh fruits while Ian strangely brought back many bird eggs. Seeing Gu Meng Meng looking at him as though he was a pervert, he snorted coldly. "Even our Eagle Owl tribe doesn't have any descendants, how can these uncivilized dumb birds reproduce?" Gu Meng Meng's eyes were filled with disdain. Gu Meng Meng clicked her tongue and sighed at how black-bellied Ian was. His "if I don't have a good time, no one can have a good time" emphasis was too evil. But even so, Gu Meng Meng knew that Ian had gone to retrieve these bird eggs because Leah had instructed him in the morning. Gu Meng Meng was still nestled in Elvis's arms. She did not know why, but she just felt that something had happened to Elvis during the day she went to the deep sea. There was clearly nothing different, but Gu Meng Meng knew that Elvis was very uneasy, as if he was very attached to her. But he did not want to say, so Gu Meng Meng could only choose not to ask. Gu Meng Meng bit on the fruits Wabi had brought back and stretched her neck to wait for Leah to cook the bird eggs. The eggs were not cooked yet, but a few familiar faces came up from the sea. Fei Rui was holding Melinda's hand as he ran over. Looking at the smiles on their faces, Gu Meng Meng thought to herself that Carter was really efficient. He had only returned late last night and this morning, he had already cleared Melinda's name. Lord Envoy. Fei Rui and Melinda were the same. Their skin was so fair that Gu Meng Meng could not bear to let them bask in the sun. It was as if the sun could melt them. Meanwhile, Fei Rui and Melinda's cheeks were flushed red. Mermaids did not have sweat glands, so their skin was still dry. However, their panting clearly told Gu Meng Meng how much they wanted to be the first to tell this good news to her. Gu Meng Meng patted Fei Rui's shoulder. "Speak slowly, it's all right." Fei Rui took a deep breath. His cold, star-like eyes shone with a bright light. He was so happy that he almost cried. "My sister is free." Gu Meng Meng maintained a polite smile. Although this news, she had already known about it last night, she still congratulated Marlene happily. She passed one of the fruits in her hands to Marlene and said, "Here, this is for you. To celebrate your freedom." Chapter 770. Gu Meng Meng looked behind her. Indeed, there was a familiar head peeking over from behind the rock. It clearly wanted to stick close to her, but could only watch from afar. It looked rather pitiful. "You, come here for a moment." Gu Meng Meng pointed at the head behind the rock. Carter was taken aback, but still swam out from behind the rock. He transformed into his human form and went ashore. His eyes were fixed on Melinda. Naturally, he didn't miss the way Melinda shivered and hid behind Fei Rui the moment he appeared. She was still afraid of him, great messenger. Carter lowered his head and averted his gaze. He didn't want to see Melinda panicking, but he couldn't help but want to get closer to her. Gu Mengmeng ignored the conflict between the two. She just said to herself, "We want to eat seafood. You and Fei Rui can help me fish some." Carter nodded. Yes. Fei Rui wasn't willing to speak to Carter, but Gu Mengmeng was the messenger of the beast deity. If she hadn't come, Melinda would still be locked up. Although this matter had nothing to do with Gu Mengmeng on the surface, Fei Rui knew that if Gu Mengmeng had not stepped forward, Carter would not have let Melinda go no matter how much evidence they had to prove her innocence. So it was his honor to be able to do something for Gu Mengmeng. Although it was insignificant compared to what Gu Mengmeng had done for him and his sister, it still made him feel better. So even though his partner was Carter, Fei Rui didn't reject Gu Mengmeng's request. He stood up and swam with Carter towards the deep sea. Gu Mengmeng liked pretty girls, especially those who were beautiful and kind. Seeing that Melinda was holding the fruit without eating it, Gu Mengmeng smiled and asked, "You don't like to eat this kind of fruit?" Melinda shook her head. "I have never eaten it before." Gu Mengmeng turned to Wabi. "Is this a fruit that is hard to find?" Wabi pointed to the nearby forest. "There are many of them." Melinda blushed slightly. She lowered her head. "This is my first time coming ashore." Gu Mengmeng grinned and held Melinda's little hand. "I am very honored to be able to accompany you on such a special day." Melinda smiled sweetly. She was a little shy and bashful. "Thank you, great messenger." Gu Mengmeng picked up her fruit and took a bite. Then, she signaled Melinda to have a taste too. The beauty ate with great elegance. That small bite was like kissing a fruit. Looking at the half-eaten fruit in her hand, Gu Mengmeng suddenly started to doubt her own feminine nature. After mating for half a year, had she forgotten to maintain her image in front of Elvis and Leah? Is it really okay to eat like this? Gu Mengmeng thought about it and started to take small bites of the fruit. But Elvis pressed her hand down and pressed the fruit down. Then, he kissed her lips and said, "I like your original appearance. Don't force yourself to learn from others." Gu Mengmeng blushed. She did not expect Elvis to care about such a small detail. Come to think of it, when she was pregnant with Hedda and his brothers, Elvis was the one who carried them to the toilet. What kind of pathetic state had he not seen before? However, he had seen her at her worst, most disheveled, and most unkempt, but he still loved her. Chapter 771. Melinda told Gu Mengmeng what had happened last night. It was roughly the same as what Leah had told her. Dora had voluntarily returned the giant fish clan's treasure because she was afraid of the beast deity's curse and confessed to framing Melinda for stealing it. Melinda was imprisoned by the giant fish clan as a slave. Her fate was to be used as a currency to exchange for resources with other tribes. To a female, this was not much of a punishment. After all, she was still a treasure in the hands of other tribes. After all, she was a female. But this cleared Melinda of the crime of stealing, and the giant fish clan could no longer imprison her. Moreover, as compensation for wrongly accusing her, Carter also returned all the territories of the mermaid clan that they had lost to him in a challenge. Everything returned to its original position. It seemed that everything had returned to its original point. But Carter's feelings for Melinda grew stronger every day. And Melinda's fear of Carter also grew stronger. Gu Mengmeng almost burst out laughing after hearing Melinda's description. The beast deity's curse. What the hell was that? So good at making things up. While Gu Mengmeng and Melinda were chatting, Fei Rui and Carter had also returned with seafood. When Gu Mengmeng saw the fish Carter had brought back, 10,000 curses ran through her mind. Yes, she said she wanted to eat seafood and fish. But there was no need for you to bring back a whale, right? Gu Mengmeng's jaw almost dropped to the ground as she watched Carter slowly drag the whale by its tail onto the shore. Big brother, your brain circuit is so F***king fast. Besides Gu Meng Meng, Melinda was also shocked. Although Carter had not expressed anything when he had dragged the fish onto the shore, Melinda had already inwardly thought of him as cool and cruel. Her little body trembled as she gripped Gu Mingming's hand so tightly that her fingertips turned white. Power equals charm. This was definitely a male's hallucination after his brain was caught in a door. Wabi, you can eat that fish. Gu Meng Meng pointed at the whale Carter had brought back. Eat it in the sea. Don't let me see you eating. I am scared. Since Gu Meng Meng didn't call him little shit, Wabi happily walked to Carter's side and dragged the whale back into the sea without another word. Carter had no idea what was going on. But looking at Leah and Gu Mingming's disdainful expression and Melinda's fearful expression, he knew he had messed up again. He only hoped that she would see that he was very strong and could protect her. Why did it backfire? Frustrated, Kate stood on the spot, not knowing what to do. Fei Rui ignored him and sat beside Gu Meng Meng and Melinda. He placed a few shellfish on the ground and said, "These shellfish are very delicious, have a taste." With that said, Fei Rui crushed the shell with a kacha, and the shell immediately shattered into pieces. The flesh of the shell was still squirming, and the scene was somewhat disgusting. Gu Meng Meng sighed and said, "A gentleman stays away from the kitchen." Fei Rui did not understand. He tilted his head and waited for Gu Mingming's explanation. Gu Meng Meng looked at his clear eyes, then at the pile of crushed shellfish meat in his hand. She smiled and explained gently, "It means to scram and play at the side." Fei Rui lowered his head like a child who had done something wrong. He thought that Gu Meng Meng didn't like the shellfish and wanted to take it away too. Seeing his aggrieved look, Gu Mingming's heart softened. "Put it down, I will handle it." Aside from the topic, Gu Meng Meng, I always thought that Colin was the epitome of inexperience in love. But after meeting you, I finally understand. Haha, being unromantic is just child's play. Carter. What did I do wrong? Chapter 772. She got Leah to start a fire and placed a flat stone slab on top of it. She threw the shells on top to heat them up and soon, they all opened up. There was nothing dirty in the original marine products. Gu Meng Meng used simple seasonings to marinate them before using tree resin to skewer the shellfish. She had no choice. There were no stainless steel roasting pans here. She could only eat boiled shellfish after skewering them. Boiled oysters or whatever, TSK, not interested. After Gu Meng Meng demonstrated the first skewer, the task of cooking was handed over to Leah. Gu Meng Meng was more interested in the shells themselves. The nameless shells glowed with 5 different colors, giving off a rainbow-like glow under the sunlight. Gu Meng Meng and Melinda each took one and couldn't bear to part with it. Especially when they found a good pearl in one of the shells, the 2 females were overjoyed, as if they had discovered a new continent. The pearl was also colorful like the shells, but the shape was not very good. It was not a regular pattern, but a little, like a lazy goat's hairstyle. Although pearls of this quality were not considered top quality in the ocean, the 2 females were extremely rare. Gu Meng Meng drew the pearl left and right on Melinda's body. The size was just right to make an earring. It matched Melinda's face perfectly. She used a tree branch to draw a simple diagram for Melinda. Melinda's eyes almost popped out of her head. Perhaps only Oriton's obsession with food could compare to a girl's obsession with jewelry. The earring was finally completed. This was thanks to Fei Rui's spitting technique. He held the pearl and spat out a droplet of water from his mouth. It was as thin as an embroidery needle and accurately pierced through the spot Gu Meng Meng had pointed out. Gu Meng Meng was overjoyed. She asked for a strand of Melinda's hair to pierce through the hole and tie a dead knot. Then, she skillfully weaved a flower pattern. Gu Mengmeng didn't know which generation's inherited memories told her that the hair of the mermaid tribe was very tough and not easily damaged. Moreover, Melinda's hair was long and of good quality. Using her hair to make an earring was the best match for her ears. Everything was prepared. The last step was to pierce Melinda's ears. Why else would it be said that one would not regret dying for beauty? In order to wear the earring, the petite little girl handed over her ear without hesitation and let Fei Rui spit a drop of water through it. Fei Rui was trembling in fear. What kind of joke was this? Even a slight frown from his precious little sister was enough to make his heart ache. Now she wanted him to attack her. No way, no way. Gu Mengmeng snorted. So useless. Carter, come here. Gu Mengmeng waved her hand. Carter walked over silently and stood beside Gu Mengmeng, his eyes fixed on Melinda. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the center of Melinda's earlobe. Can you pierce a small hole here? Carter frowned and looked at Melinda. You really want to have your ears pierced? Melinda was afraid of Carter and instinctively wanted to hide. But after looking at Gu Mengmeng and then at the pearl earring, she hesitated but still nodded. This was the first time Melinda had asked him to do something. No matter how reluctant he was, Carter would not disappoint her. Chapter 773. Melinda did not know why. This was the person she was most afraid of, but when she heard him say that, she felt strangely at ease. Blushing, Melinda didn't have time to think about anything else when she felt a warm breath on her ear. Instinctively, she shrank her neck to avoid it, but Carter's hand was already on her face. He gently pulled her into his embrace, and the side of her face was pressed against his chest. His heart was beating wildly. He didn't know if it was because he was worried that he had accidentally hurt her, or because she was willing to be so close to him. He only knew that when he saw her blush, his body reacted faster than his brain. He wanted to hug her. He really just wanted to hug her. Melinda did not struggle or resist. She seemed to be in a daze and allowed Carter to hug her for a long time. Fei Rui was unhappy and wanted to separate them, but was held back by Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng shook her head lightly. Isn't it good to have another reliable person to protect her with you? Fei Rui was stunned for a moment. He carefully observed Carter's and Melinda's expressions before slowly withdrawing his strength and turning to leave. After hugging for a long time, Carter released Melinda. It was not that he had enough, but he did not dare to ask for more. He wanted to hug her and never let go. But if he hugged her any longer, she would angrily push him away. He was prepared to be scolded by Melinda, but his careful gaze met Melinda's momentary disappointment. Maybe she liked his hug. Stunned for a moment, Carter immediately hugged Melinda back into his arms. He would hug her like this until the end of time. However, Melinda had already regained her senses from that momentary chill. She pushed Carter away and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. She hid behind Gu Mengmeng with her head lowered, clearly still resisting Carter. Gu Mengmeng pretended not to see anything. She pulled Melinda along and chatted happily. She helped Melinda put on the pearl earrings and sighed sincerely. He pulled Melinda to the beach and asked her to look at the reflection in the water to see if she was satisfied with the result. However, Melinda's eye subconsciously peeked at Carter through the reflection in the water. Gu Mengmeng pulled Melinda back and pretended to be nonchalant. Carter, what do you think of this earring? Are you a good match for Melinda? Carter's eyes were still on Melinda's face. Meeting her cautious and expectant gaze, Carter smiled bashfully and dotingly. Very beautiful, very beautiful. Gu Mengmeng clearly saw that Melinda's face had turned red, but she refused to let it go. Then is the earring prettier or Melinda prettier? You have to speak clearly. Kate's expression did not change. Melinda is beautiful. She is the most beautiful female in the world. She is the essence of all things beautiful. Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded, then pretended to sigh in pity. What a pity, there's only one. If only I could find another pearl that looks exactly the same to make a pair. Carter did not say a word, but Gu Mengmeng recognized his expression. It was the expression Elvis and Leah had every time she said something unintentionally, and Elvis and Leah secretly remembered it. She believed that even if Carter had to turn the entire ocean upside down, he would definitely find another pearl that was exactly the same for Melinda. However, he would leave the future to time. Chapter 774. After resting for 2 days, Fei Rui and Carter brought their tribesmen to fetch Gu Mengmeng to the Forbidden Abyss on the morning of the 3rd day. Compared to the first time they entered the sea, it was a little more extravagant this time. Gu Mengmeng was wrapped up in Wabiai's snake tail, feeling like an emperor leading his officials on a tour with a divine beast. Although this divine beast looked like a piece of sh*t soaked in water, but she endured it. After all, there were many fishes behind them and it looked rather intimidating. Elvis and Leah also wanted to follow but were rejected by Gu Mengmeng. Although the mermaid tribe's air bubble could allow them to breathe underwater, if they met with any accident and the air bubble burst, they would definitely die at that depth. Moreover, even if the air bubble was fine, the water pressure at the bottom of the sea was also a serious problem. Beasts who lived on land for a long time would be half dead just by going down. Why was Gu Mengmeng fine? Nonsense, she had Snake's Beast King powers and the kiss of the beast deity from her lonely father. Of course she would be fine. When they neared the so-called Forbidden Abyss, Gu Mengmeng finally understood why Fei Rui said the messenger of the beast deity had to come personally. It was clearly a flowing sea, but it was filled with a thick layer of poison. It was as if the poison was continuously seeping out from the depths of the sea, so thick that even the sea could not melt it. Fei Rui and the rest swam to this point and could no longer go any nearer. Their expressions were solemn as if they were suffocating. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to force them, so she asked them to retreat. She and Wabiai could go down alone. Fei Rui was worried, but he also knew that with his powers, he would only cause more trouble if he went down. So he instructed Gu Mengmeng not to force herself, and to retreat if she felt something was wrong. She must not force herself. Gu Mengmeng made a reassuring gesture and asked them to retreat further and not be affected by the poison. Fei Rui and Carter said that they would meet her at the entrance and wait for her to come out. Gu Mengmeng didn't reject them. She just led Wabiai into the deepest part of the pitch-black darkness without any source of light. Gu Mengmeng had inherited Elvis's night vision, so her fear of the dark had already been reduced to its lowest point. But the absolute darkness and the absolute silence still gave her a creepy feeling of uneasiness. Gu Mengmeng instinctively grasped Wabiai's hand, but Wabiai said irritatingly, "Don't you know how strong your claws are? If you break my arm later, you can do it yourself if you encounter any danger." It had to be said that Wabiai's words effectively dispelled Gu Mengmeng's fear. That's right, in the entire beast world, she was already the strongest among the strong. If she met with any danger, she could just release her beast pressure and suppress it. If it was some kind of demon or ghost, didn't she have a lonely old man's father to back her up? F***ck, she had someone on top of her too, okay? He was a legitimate second-generation immortal. Because of Snake's tear of the beast deity, Gu Mengmeng's body was now immune to all poisons, because there was nothing more poisonous than the blood in her body. Fighting poison with poison, it was only natural that the weaker side would be completely devoured. However, Wabiai clearly did not possess such strength. The deeper he went, the denser the poisonous fog became. Wabiai was starting to feel a little powerless. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Wabiai in front of her, so she asked him to return and wait with Fei Rui and the rest. But Wabiai said, "If I leave you alone, you can forget about raising your head in front of him for the rest of your life. Digression, yeah, today's update is over. Chapter 775. Gu Mengmeng wanted to say that there was no need to compete in such a place. She had the protection of the kiss of the beast deity and her abilities were not affected in the water. Even without Wabiai, it would not be a big problem. But Gu Mengmeng also knew that males had their own pride and dignity. Sometimes, they would view certain things as more important than their own lives. She did not hesitate too much because any further hesitation would only cause Wabiai more pain and suffering. Nodding, Gu Mengmeng said, "If you can't hold on, go back immediately. I will not blame you and neither will Snake. On the contrary, if anything happens to you, I will not be able to answer to Snake." Wabiai tucked Gu Mengmeng under his armpit and charged into the abyss in his half-beast form. He raised his speed to the maximum, clearly wanting to end the battle as soon as possible. His tightly furrowed brows and a solemn expression that she had never seen before proved that his current condition was not optimistic. But he still gritted his teeth and said, "I don't need you to answer to him about my life." In the poisonous fog in the deep sea, there was nothing but flowing water. Wabiai's speed was so fast that Gu Mengmeng could only feel the poisonous fog whizzing past her ears. Her body was sinking rapidly. But how long did she sink? How deep and how far did she sink? How long did she sink? Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered. But when Wabiai's body finally stopped, Gu Mengmeng could clearly see that the scales on his tail had already been corroded by the poisonous fog, revealing the flesh underneath. There were also many festering spots on his chest. It was not fatal, but it was still a ghastly sight. Wabiai spat out a mouthful of saliva that was mixed with blood. He raised his hand to wipe it off and laughed as though he did not know his limits. "You want to compete in poison with me? In this life, only Snake is more poisonous than me." Seeing his stubborn look, Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand that was about to support him. Sometimes, she had to know how to hold back her pity to save a man's face. Gu Mengmeng smiled and patted the parts of Wabiai's body that were still intact. "Not bad, I thought you couldn't hold on any longer. TSK, the only one who can kill me in this world has already been destroyed by you," Wabiai said with unclear emotions before surveying the surroundings. The poisonous fog hovered above their heads like a thick, dark cloud, while the area under the poisonous fog was unbelievably clean. Gu Mengmeng consciously sucked in a mouthful of seawater and swallowed it, only to realize that it was not salty. In other words, the part under the poisonous fog was not seawater but fresh water, and it was the kind of fresh water that was similar to mineral water. This was very strange. Gu Mengmeng did not know what kind of topography would cause such a situation to occur. Could it be related to the poisonous fog? However, Gu Mengmeng did not have much interest in surveying the geography of the seabed. She just walked along the path that was paved with mud from the seabed. Speaking of which, it was very strange. There was clearly still water below, but there was no water flowing. It was clearly the same seabed mud, but there was a forest path that formed a sharp contrast with the mud beside it, as if it was guiding her forward. After taking 2 steps, Gu Mengmeng realized something was wrong. The speed at which her feet sank was getting faster and faster, but it was getting harder and harder to pull out. Underwater swamp. Gu Mengmeng frowned and wanted to swim across the sky. Chapter 776. Gu Mengmeng tried to walk around from the side of the small path, but she realized that the suction force from the side was stronger. She had just placed her feet lightly on the ground when there was already a force sucking her in, almost sucking her in. Wabiai used his snake tail to lift Gu Mengmeng up onto his head. He had already transformed into his original form. The huge snake head was as big as a train and Gu Mengmeng sat on it stably. The thick snake body slithered along the path like a fish in water. Gu Meng Meng giggled. Luckily Wabi-Ai had insisted on coming down with her. Otherwise, she really didn't know how to get down. Little shit, I didn't expect you to be so reliable. Gu Meng Meng patted Wabi-Ai's head. Wabi-Ai stuck out his tongue and said to Gu Meng Meng in snake language, "If you call me little shit again, do you believe I won't throw you into the mud?" Gu Meng Meng shrugged. "I don't believe you." Wabi-Ai gritted his teeth and didn't reply. Because, he didn't believe it either. Because of Wabi-Ai's cheat-like nature, they reached the end of the path after about half an hour. It was rather boring and nothing happened. Then, Gu Meng Meng was even more confused. The ocean behind them was like a huge water ball, rippling with water, but the light was blocked off. And the place they were at now was actually dry and filled with air. It was not an underwater cave or any other land. They were at the bottom of the ocean, but the ocean was behind them, as if there was an invisible wall of water blocking off the ocean. Not a single drop of water flowed in. Wabi-Ai had also transformed back into his human form. And the miraculous thing was that his injuries had actually healed. Not only that, Gu Meng Meng even felt that his skin had become better than before. She had heard that there was a sea mud face mask that was selling well, but she didn't expect the effects to be so good. Gu Meng Meng secretly decided that she would dig some up when she returned later. It would be good to give it to her friends and family as local specialties, right? Wabi-Ai also noticed the changes on his body, but he didn't take it to heart. He just urged Gu Meng Meng to hurry on. Not long after, Gu Meng Meng saw a huge clam shell. Yes, just a dried clam shell. As expected, not all demons and ghosts could live for more than 1,000 years. Gu Meng Meng went forward and wanted to pry open the clamshell to take a look. But the moment her hand touched the clamshell, it cracked and shattered into pieces. Was it eroded by the wind? Gu Meng Meng shrugged her shoulders helplessly. She pushed the shredded clam shell to one side and found a pearl the size of a fist. It was black and glowed with a dark green light. It was faint and gave off a mysterious vibe. Gu Meng Meng weighed it in her hand and looked around to see if there was anything else. She thought to herself, was this the kiss of the ocean? A black pearl. It was a little big, but no matter how he looked at it, there was nothing special about it. The luminous pearl that Elvis had given her to play with previously was not much smaller than this. She had crushed it just like that. It did not seem to be that rare. Gu Meng Meng held it in her hands for a long time, but still could not think of anything else. If the kiss of the ocean was not referring to the shattered clam shell, then it could only be referring to this pearl. And on the way back, Gu Meng Meng truly experienced the awesomeness of this pearl. Chapter 777. Gu Meng Meng was stunned by the scene before her the moment she entered the poisonous fog from the freshwater. The poisonous mist swirled, and like the drain of a bathtub that had been opened, it gradually disappeared from the drain. And this drain was the black pearl in Gu Meng Meng's hand, the kiss of the ocean. What the heck? Don't judge a pearl by its cover. Gu Meng Meng stared in bewilderment as the poisonous fog swirled into a huge whirlpool like a tornado. Then, the thinnest part of the fog was rapidly sucked into the black pearl. She didn't know how to react. After a long while, when Gu Meng Meng regained her senses, the poisonous fog had already thinned to the point where she could vaguely see what was going on 3 to 5 meters away. Amidst the dilution of the seawater, there was a sense of ink-stained beauty. Gu Meng Meng thought about how Wabi-Ai had to swim for half a day to bring her down. No matter how powerful the pearl was, it would take some time to absorb the fog. It would be too much of a waste of time to swim back after it was done. Not to mention Fei Rui and Carter, Elvis and Leah didn't know what was going on down there. Wouldn't they go crazy seeing her taking so long to return? So Gu Meng Meng leaned over to Wabi-Ai and said, "Let's swim back as we swim. I don't think we can finish absorbing the fog in such a short time." Wabi-Ai had originally come with Gu Meng Meng, He wasn't interested in the poisonous fog, nor the kiss of the ocean. So when he heard Gu Mingming's words, he nodded and held Gu Mengmeng under his arm as he swam back slowly. He even intentionally swam towards the areas with the thickest poisonous fog so that the pearl could absorb the fog faster. Before they could swim out of the poisonous fog, Gu Mengmeng smelled blood. She instinctively frowned. Could it be that the giant fish tribe and the mermaid tribe had gotten into a fight again? TSK, why were these fish more aggressive than lions and tigers? Gu Mengmeng was worried that Fei Rui would be at a disadvantage, so she asked Wabiai to speed up. The closer they got, the more Gu Mengmeng felt that something was wrong. The sounds of fighting were rather loud. It didn't seem like something Fei Rui and Carter could create. After all, with Fei Rui's small physique, he was nothing in front of Kite. It was a one-sided abuse. It was impossible for him to cause such a ruckus. Furthermore, Carter still wanted to woo Melinda, so he couldn't kill Fei Rui. If he really beat Fei Rui up, then he could forget about developing a relationship with Melinda that was more than friendship in this lifetime. Gu Mengmeng choked on her saliva as she charged out of the poisonous fog. It was not a problem with the seawater, but the blood content of the seawater was too high. Gu Mengmeng almost doubted her own eyes. What was going on? Did he swim into the burial pit of the sea race? Why were there so many corpses of the sea race? Although they had been beaten back to their original forms and were just fish, Gu Mengmeng could clearly tell that they were not ordinary fish, but from the ocean tribe. But after returning to their original forms, Gu Mengmeng could not recognize any of them. The corpses of the sea folk were different from those of ordinary fish. When ordinary fish died, their corpses would float up, but the corpses of the sea folk would sink. After the poisonous fog thinned, the corpses would slowly sink into the poisonous fog. Their bodies were already wounded and they did not have a strong resistance to poison. As a result, even after 80% of the poisonous fog had been absorbed, their corpses continued to rot in the poisonous fog until not even their bones were left. Chapter 778. Wabiai led Gu Mengmeng and continued to swim upstream. They could already see people fighting. Huge waves surged beneath the surface of the sea. The battle between the sea tribes was even more brutal than that between the wild beasts on land. Gu Mengmeng tried her best to distinguish between friend and foe, and finally found Fei Rui and Carter under the guidance of that head of golden hair. At that moment, the two of them were being attacked by another member of the sea tribe. From the looks of it, that person should also be third level. It was hard to say who would win if he fought Carter head-on, but Carter had to deal with him while protecting Melinda at the same time. It was inevitable that he was being attacked from both sides. Gu Mengmeng quickly swam over and turned to protect Fei Rui and his sister behind her. She faced the enemy's attack head-on and smiled coldly. She didn't even raise her hand. The attacker didn't hesitate at all because of Gu Mengmeng's appearance. Not only did his movements not slow down, they even became fiercer. In just an instant, he adjusted his angle slightly. He was going to take Gu Mengmeng's life. However, before that sword-like nose could reach within 3 steps of Gu Mengmeng, it stopped abruptly. The attacker frowned and suddenly turned back to look. His heart skipped a beat and his face contorted in shock. Fear contorted his face and he didn't even have time to shout for help before half of his body was bitten off by Wabiai. Blood spread across the sea like a red spider lily blooming in the sea. It was demonic and strange, carrying with it a strong aura of death. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Wabiai threw away the half-fish wrapped in his snake tail in disgust. Then, he watched in disgust as it slowly sank into the poisonous fog of the abyss, gradually rotting and dissipating. Twisting his neck, he scanned the surroundings. That gaze was just like looking at food. Great messenger. Fei Rui grasped Melinda's hand and pushed her to Gu Mengmeng's side. Great messenger, please help me take care of my sister. If we all die here today, please bring her back to Saint Nazaire. Even if she becomes partners with a land beast, it's fine as long as she survives." As he said that, Fei Rui glanced at Carter. Carter pursed his lips but didn't say a word. The other party had come prepared. They had concentrated their attacks on Melinda from the start, forcing him to stay by her side to protect her. He could only watch helplessly as his people were scattered by the other party and killed one by one. Now that the giant fish tribe had suffered heavy losses, it was doubtful if they could even survive to the end, much less protect Melinda. He wanted to have her, but compared to his own wish, her survival was more important. She was so beautiful and kind that no matter how vulgar the land orcs were, they would still take pity on her. If it was the tribe of the messenger of the beast deity, she would have a good life. Clenching his fists tightly, Carter slowly took a step forward, ready to fight. It was the sorrow and heroism of a warrior who would never return. But just as he took a step forward, his waist tightened. Melinda hugged Kate's waist from behind and said in a nasal voice, "I'm not leaving. I want to be with Kate. Even if we die together." Chapter 779. Carter and Melinda had no idea what Gu Mengmeng was saying. They only saw her gently nudge the three of them away from the battlefield, before instructing, "All members of the giant fish tribe and mermaid tribe, retreat behind your tribe leaders." As soon as he finished speaking, the scattered clansmen retreated in a sorry state. The enemies were intimidated by Wabi and didn't dare to move. They could only watch helplessly as they left. "Is there no one else on our side?" Gu Mengmeng turned back and asked. Carter scanned the surroundings and nodded. Gu Mengmeng smiled slyly. "Children, it's time to eat." As soon as he finished speaking, countless water snakes surged out from all directions and surrounded the battlefield. Then, they gradually tightened the encirclement and gathered the enemies again and again. Those who attempted to break out of the encirclement or escape would immediately be bitten by the agile water snakes for a second. In less than 3 seconds, they would no longer have the strength to struggle. Then, the water snakes would bite their heads and slowly swallow their entire bodies into their stomachs. The others didn't dare to escape anymore. They cowered and moved closer to the center. And in the center, waiting for them was the beast form Wabi. His bloody mouth was wide open, as if waiting for them to jump into his mouth. Retreat. There was no way out. Attack. There was a huge disparity in power. It was supposed to be a sure-win situation, but the moment that female appeared, the tables were turned. Damn it, when did these snakes appear? All the enemies were surrounded by the snakes like sardines in a can. With Wabi's mouth, he would probably finish them all in 2 mouthfuls. Wait a minute. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and gestured for him to stop. The snake beast's encirclement stopped shrinking and Wabi also transformed back into his half-beast form out of boredom. He used his tail to sweep up the person who had just spoken and threw him in front of Gu Mengmeng. Fish in the water would never be in such a sorry state. Although he was thrown out, he still landed steadily in front of Gu Mengmeng. He straightened his body and looked rather arrogant. "Greetings, great messenger." Gu Mengmeng sized it up and chuckled. "Oh, so there are stray beasts in the sea too." That person stood up straight. It was not strange that his identity as a stray beast had been exposed. After all, although his side had the numbers of a tribe, they were not united. On land, tribes lived together, but in the ocean, most tribes were united. Furthermore, the females in the tribe would not mate with outsiders to ensure the purity of the tribe's bloodline. This was also one of the reasons why Melinda was so resistant and evasive when Kate expressed her desire to woo her, even though she had saved Kate. Although the stray beasts are beastmen abandoned by the beast deity, the beast deity should not have sent the great messenger to kill us all, right? I wonder why the great emissary wants to interfere in our dispute today. That person was rather strong-willed. He didn't think that it was wrong for him to initiate a massacre. After all, this world was ruled by the strong, and it was the right thing to do. Gu Mengmeng smiled at the person in front of her. Of course the beast deity did not order me to kill you all. Otherwise, do you think you still have the chance to talk nonsense with me? Gu Mengmeng slowly and appropriately released a bit of pressure. It was very subtle and not a lot, but it was enough to make people shiver. The pressure of a beast king. That person gritted his teeth and lowered his head in submission. The reason was simply because he was submissive to the strong and had a deep-rooted fear of a superior. Aside from the topic, explain why there were clearly water snakes around but no one came out to rescue them just now. These water snakes were brought out by Wabi. Since Wabi did not say anything, Gu Mengmeng did not intend for them to appear from the start. After all, the sea tribe seemed to be very afraid of snakes. She did not want to create panic. Gu Mengmeng did not expect someone to attack her the moment she went down to retrieve a pearl, so she did not give the order to protect them. And snakes were cold-blooded by nature. To them, the life and death of others was just a trivial matter. They would not care. Chapter 780. There was still a bunch of weaklings behind her. After the previous battle with the stray beasts, Gu Mengmeng already knew the importance of controlling her emotions. She had been working hard to control her beast pressure over this period of time, and had achieved some success. Seeing that the person who came out to negotiate had given in, there was no need for her to continue pressuring him. After all, what if Melinda was scared to death before the stray beasts? As for why I want to interfere in your dispute, you have to ask yourself. Gu Mengmeng smiled condescendingly. Don't tell me that you stray beasts who have been banished by the various tribes just happened to meet them and wanted to exterminate them when you passed by. Why not? Stray beasts do not follow the rules. That person was a little guilty, but still forced himself to look calm. Gu Mengmeng replied with an "Oh." So stray beasts do not follow the rules. All right then, let's leave the stray beasts to them to settle. Gu Mengmeng took a step forward and slapped that person's shoulder, sending him back into the water snake's encirclement. Gu Mengmeng's strength was so strong that even a fish could not resist the force. When he could barely steady himself, he felt a pain in his lower body before he could say another word. Turning his head, he realized that his lower body had already entered Wabi's mouth. The snake's venomous eyes were vertical, emitting a chill that made one's entire body shiver. But he did not even have the chance to beg for mercy before he was swallowed into Wabi's mouth and died. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng would definitely be a little afraid when faced with such a scene. But after inheriting Snake's memories, she was very clear on one thing. That was to be merciful to one's enemy was to be cruel to oneself. She had already heard the water snake's report. These stray beasts had planned to kill Carter, Fei Rui and the rest, then disguise themselves as them. When Gu Mengmeng emerged from the abyss, they would suddenly attack and snatch the kiss of the ocean. But they didn't expect a few things. Firstly, the poisonous fog didn't kill Wabi, nor did it weaken Gu Mengmeng. Secondly, they underestimated Fei Rui, Carter and the rest. They didn't expect that they would rather risk their lives to stay here and provide support for Gu Mengmeng. They were clearly not powerful, but none of them tried to escape. If Gu Mengmeng came back later, looking at the less than 20 people left behind, Gu Mengmeng's heart was bleeding. How majestic was the scene when they arrived. In less than half a day, there were less than 20 people left. Gu Mengmeng hugged Fei Rui's arm and grinned. Our little shit looks ferocious when he eats. Don't scare Melinda. Let's return to the shore first. Fei Rui and Carter turned back to look at Wabi. The absolute disparity in strength was on full display in front of him. The stray beasts that had been tearing at their tribesmen earlier were now coiled around Wabi by the water snake. It was as if they had been sent to the dragon's pool and had lost all will to resist. There was only a desolate look on their faces, clearly waiting for death. Such a scene was not suitable for females to watch. Chapter 781. The moment she broke through the water, the ripples on the surface of the sea shattered the afterglow of the setting sun. The orange-red light shone on her body, making her look like a warrior returning from a blood-soaked battle, exuding an inexplicable sense of heroism. Elvis rushed to the shore and pulled Gu Mengmeng over from Fei Rui's hands. He used his chest to warm her up and scanned her body with his X-ray eyes. He only heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that she was unharmed from head to toe. Leah wrapped Gu Mengmeng up in a beast skin that was already warmed up. He looked up and did a head count. He frowned slightly but didn't ask anything. When they had left, there had been a huge crowd. But when they returned, there were only 2 or 3 of them left. Fei Rui and Carter were still bleeding, while Melinda looked haggard and there were over 20 people behind them. It was easy to guess what had happened without asking. Leah and Elvis were well aware of how much Gu Mengmeng valued human lives. They didn't want her to shoulder all these lives on her own. They observed Gu Mengmeng carefully. Seeing that she wasn't too affected, they felt a little more at ease. But what they didn't know was that Gu Mengmeng could already control her emotions well. It wasn't that she was numb to death, but because she knew that the dead were gone. She had to look forward, she had to be brave. Only then would the people around her not be affected by her depression. Think about how her emotions had tormented Elvis and Leah the last time. She had to love her own men. She couldn't possibly keep crying and worrying Elvis and Leah every time something happened, could she? Gu Mengmeng spread out the black pearl in her hands for Elvis and Leah to see, saying, "This thing is quite rare. I want to go down again tomorrow to suck up all the poisonous fog that has not been sucked dry, in case it pollutes the water source." What poisonous fog? Elvis's heart twitched as he asked coldly. Gu Mengmeng explained the situation at the bottom of the sea, including how she went down, how she obtained the kiss of the ocean, what she had encountered on the way back, and what Wabi was doing when he didn't follow up. Elvis and Leah were trembling with fear. They gritted their teeth and wanted nothing more than to strangle this troublemaker. Why did she run to wherever there was danger? The poisonous fog was so thick that even Wabi could not withstand it, and she dared to rush in without blinking. With her delicate skin, could she be more resistant to corrosion than Wabi's snake scales? No matter how Gu Mengmeng explained that she was fine, Elvis and Leah were sure that she had been corroded by the poisonous fog to the extent that a layer of her skin had been peeled off. Well, no matter what, I've gotten the kiss of the ocean back. But Gu Mengmeng's gaze landed on Carter's and Fei Rui's faces, then back at Melinda, who was still in a state of shock. The Mermaid Clan and Giant Fish Clan suffered great losses in order to receive me. I cannot just leave like this. Leah said while wiping her hair, I don't care about other things, but don't mention anything about going into the sea again. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and protested, I still want to take in the fog, how can I not go into the sea? Leah did not back down. Let Wabi absorb the poisonous fog with this stupid pearl. You stay on the shore obediently. Gu Mengmeng said, I won't. Leah chuckled, his gaze gentle and affectionate. He whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, you have to believe. Elvis and I have 100 ways to make you lose the energy to go into the sea again, do you want to try? Chapter 782. What kind of joke was that? Try. She was not stupid. Just Elvis alone could easily make her unable to get out of bed for 3 days. Now with Leah, If these two shameless fellows really went all out to teach her a lesson, she would really be dismembered on the bed. Seeing Gu Mengmeng admit defeat, Leah smiled regretfully. He hooked Gu Mengmeng's little chin and said in a slightly resentful tone, "I still wanted to try forcing Polly." "What a pity." Gu Mengmeng blushed and pushed Leah away. She then looked at Fei Rui and Carter and said, "There are only so many of you left. It is not practical to split into two tribes. Why don't we merge?" Fei Rui doted on his younger sister. He could see that Melinda's feelings towards Carter had changed and he could not bear to disappoint his sister. And Carter was even more so. He could give up his life for Melinda. What else did he have to protect? But there had never been a mixed tribe in the ocean. Although there were only over 20 mermaids and giant fish tribes left, they did not know whether to call themselves the mermaids tribe or the giant fish tribe. Melinda was also in a difficult position. She obviously hoped that her brother and Carter could become a family. She did not want to leave either of them. But it was a heavy topic to decide on which tribe to make disappear. No matter what she chose, one side would be hurt. This was not something she wanted to see. So Melinda took a step forward and looked at Gu Mengmeng. She said timidly, "The great messenger saved all of our lives today. She is our benefactor. We are willing to listen to the great messenger and merge the two tribes together. But as for the name, could we trouble the great messenger to help us decide on it?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Melinda and felt a sense of pity for her. She was really different from those coquettish bitches outside. Even if girls saw her, they wouldn't think that her delicateness was fake. Instead, they would really want to hold her in the palm of their hands and protect her. It was the kind of feeling that any girl in front of her would want to become a strong woman and not let others bully her. Gu Mengmeng thought that if she could give birth to a daughter one day, she would definitely send her to Melinda to be her godmother and let her raise her. She would also raise a well-bred socialite like Melinda. Melinda was practically the epitome of what all mothers in the world called other people's daughters. It was 2F** king rare. Gu Mengmeng could not resist Melinda's request. Zhang Xian nodded and pondered for a long time. However, when it came to naming things, the more cautious one was, the less one would be able to come up with an idea. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and asked Leah, "What would God's blessing be translated into the beast world's language?" Leah replied, "Bridges." Gu Mengmeng felt that it sounded rather nice, so she turned to look at Carter and Fei Rui. "What do the two of you think?" This name was too big. To be honest, not to mention the fact that there were only 20 people in this tribe, even if there were 2,000 people, no one would dare to call out such an arrogant name. God's blessing, you don't like it? Gu Mengmeng looked at the strange expressions on Fei Rui and Carter's faces. It did not look like they did not like it or like it. Instead, they looked a little scared. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.